Get up off your ass right now. Stand up. Get out of your chair. Because guess what? Your chair is killing you. You want to know what I'm talking about? Well, I'm about to tell you, because today we are joined by the author of a book called Get Up, with an exclamation mark at the end of it. His name is James Levine, and he's written a book called Get Up, Why Your Chair is Killing You and What You Can Do About It. James, great to have you here. How are you doing?
Awesome. How are you?
I'm doing so well, thank you. I can see you're in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I'm here in my West Hollywood, California apartment. And guess what? I am interviewing you while walking on a treadmill desk. Can you see
How absolutely fantastic. And I am being interviewed standing outside in the beautiful sunshine. I'll just give you a picture of the palm trees there. Isn't this fantastic? This is the way business should be done.
Absolutely. And neither of us are sitting down at the moment. That is the most important thing. And I'm actually walking on a treadmill desk at 1.3 miles per hour as I'm interviewing you. You are not moving. You're stationary, but you're standing up, not sitting down. So why are you not sitting down? And why do you think I'm not sitting down, James?
So, to answer your first question, why am I not sitting down? It is a beautiful day here. The sun is shining. I've got my water. I've got the swimming pool in front of me. Why would I sit down? Right? I'm at work. You're at work. Why would we do this sitting down? Why are you not sitting down? Your quandary is more difficult. You've got to sort of take notes. So you've got to conduct the interview, and you've got to have sort of an office environment around you. And so what's a clever solution to that? You couldn't do this outside by the pool. And so that's kind of what you're doing, is you're using a treadmill desk, and I can just see you gently moving, and I'm assuming, I hope correctly, that this interview is dynamite, not substandard. And that's actually what the data suggests, is when people actually do their work up and moving, either in your environment or in mine, they actually perform better, not worse.
Absolutely. Well, I'm just showing the viewer now. If you're listening to this on the audio, you won't be able to see this. But if you're watching this, obviously in video, you can. But this is me walking on my treadmill desk. Okay, you can see there. I'm barefoot. I'm walking at 1.4 miles an hour. I'm just going to show the different things here. I've been walking I've had 336 steps. I've burned 13 calories since we started this interview. I've gone 0.09 of a mile. My speed is 1.3. And we'll see how many calories I've burned at the end of this interview. So this is a treadmill desk. And I bought this treadmill desk because I was inspired by your book, James, which was called Get Up.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I'll tell you what's happened since I've been standing up. I don't like sitting down anymore. In fact, it actually hurts me to sit down. I get a sore back now because I've got so used to standing up and walking. I've actually lost 5 pounds in about 3 weeks.
Wow.
From walking about 5 miles a day on my stand-up desk. So before we sort of get into this, and can you just tell us why we humans should stand up versus sitting, and maybe just give the little backstory as to how we actually came to be so sedentary in the first place and sitting on our ass every day?
Let me pick up the second part of the question first, because it puts it in historical perspective. I mean, you and I are both way too young to remember back 2 million years ago. And at that point in time, the human being was evolving, leaving the fields of Africa, migrating right across the world on foot. And during that time period, 1 million years, whatever it may be, 100,000, 200,000 years, that's when the DNA, that's a time span for DNA evolution, whereby the DNA is sort of evolving with us to render us a bipedal, a leg-based organism. Whether that is building our shelters, whether that is doing the work, whether that is, fighting tribe to tribe, whatever it may have been, all of that was done on our legs and whilst moving. And importantly, whilst all of this was going on, that is also when we were learning to innovate, because the way we beat the other tribe was to innovate new armaments more quickly than they did. The way we built shelters in the presence of the storm was to do so super quickly. And so if you look at the human being in that time span, one can appreciate that over hundreds of thousands of years, we've literally evolved to be an upwardly mobile organism, so to speak. Now, zoom in time to 200 years ago. 200 years ago is just a couple of generations. A couple of generations ago, 90% of the world's population, 90%, 90% of the world's population were in agricultural communities.
Okay, so James, just give us the background of the history, if you want, over evolutionary times as to how we went from presumably standing up most of the day to today where we're now sitting on our asses most of the day.
I mean, again, the reality is when you start thinking about how the human being evolved as an entity, we're about 1 to 2 million years old. During that period of time, we evolved walking out of the forests of Africa and migrating across the earth all on foot. And whilst doing that, of course, we were continuously evolving. And that involved building shelters, that involved warfare tribe to tribe, and that involved protecting our young and growing our food. And all of that was done whilst on foot, manually with our bodies. And at the same time that that was happening, we were also intellectually evolving. We were evolving in our mind to be creative and innovative. And so all of these things are intricately and biologically linked. And now if you zoom forwards to 200 years ago, 90% of the world's population were living in agricultural communities, leg-based, moving, not just at work, but also socially. And now, with the Industrial Revolution, with urbanization, and now with computer-based living, we've become bottom-based. And that is almost a uniform symptom of industrialization and modernization.
So to put it simply, we used to stand up all the time, and now we sit down all the time.
I think we used to stand up, move, and think all the time. And all of these things were linked together. Now we sit down, browse the internet, and have stopped thinking.
I'm reading from your book here, Get Up, page 70, and it says, people who sat 11 hours or more per day had a 40% greater risk of premature death than people who sat for 4 hours or less. If you sit too long, diabetes, osteoporosis, heart disease, and early death follow. That's pretty intense, James.
James, it's actually worse than that, I'm afraid. I mean, since that time, the NIH consensus panel has just come out. There are 34 chronic conditions and diseases associated with excess sitting. And they're not just the metabolic diseases, diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, even cardiovascular disease, but also now you're talking about links to depression, low mood. And again, one hates to say it, but also some of the cancers are linked to excess sitting as well, particularly breast cancer. So what I think is going on here is that this fact that we're sitting all the time is sort of like the segue to so many of these chronic diseases and conditions, AKA we are just not built to do this.
Yeah, we're not built
to sit all day long.
We're not built to sit all day long. So I want you to think about this, not you, James, but the viewer or the listener. I want you to think about this in your own life. Do you go to a job and do you sit all day? And even if you don't go to a job and you stay at home and you work from home, do you sit all day? Do the math and just figure out how many hours per day you sit. So, James, if it's something like how many hours per day on average, if someone is sitting, do you think that they need to be concerned about the impact it's having on their health?
Okay, so the way I would think about this is because, again, I mean, you can sort of turn around and sort of say, well, look, the goal, and this is now actually just being published as sort of a government recommendation in the UK, the goal could be to decrease sitting time at work 2 to 4 hours per day. Decrease sitting time 2 to 4 hours a day. And to me, if you said that to a lot of people working in the United States, a lot of people around the world, people are immediately going to say, I can't do that. My boss isn't going to let me do that. So the way I would break this down is to say to the audience, okay, how can I break up every hour? How can I get up and move every hour, even if it's for a few minutes every hour? And that could be walking down to accounting. That could be like we're doing right now, having a meeting, walking and talking, getting up and moving. That could be spending a little bit of my lunchtime gossiping, of course, but gossiping on the move. That could be Yeah, walking to the parking lot. Do you know what I mean? So if we can find ways of breaking up sitting time, that is something that is practical and everyone can do it today. Ultimately, we're going to need to rethink how we build our offices and build our office-based structures.
James, just ongoing for the rest of the interview, if you could talk as much as you can into the microphone, that would be really great because you're fading away a little. So it's funny, not funny, but it's incredible that on page 71, you actually say, well, you're actually quoting Mark Hamilton, a Mark Hamilton lecture in Miami, where you say sitting is more dangerous than smoking. Now, how can this be, James? How the hell can sitting on your ass, even if you're having like a green smoothie in the morning and you're eating Paleolithic era diet, and maybe you exercise 1 hour every single day and you feel good and you kind of got, you're energetic, you feel like that, like you're doing stuff. How can sitting for 8 hours a day or whatever it is still be worse than smoking?
James, let me very first of all, however, pick up on just one comment. So the person you just described, the green smoothie, the paleo, the vitamins, the gym, that is actually not the typical American, right? Obesity, excess body weight, chronic diseases are in particular associated, for instance, with poverty, with inaccess to these healthy foods you're talking about. And so I think the first point is to realize that there are so many drivers to the behaviors all of us have, right? Number one. Number two, how can sitting too much possibly be more dangerous than smoking? Here's the reason. If you think about it, the first thing is that 1 in 5 people smoke, right? So they're the ones who are principally impacted by the horrendous health consequences, 20-fold increase in lung cancer, for example, right? COPD. However, more than 90% of the population sit too much. And so the cumulative impact of the fact that nearly all of us are sitting too much and the fact that excess sitting is associated with those 34 chronic diseases and conditions, you can see, therefore, on a population basis, that cumulatively excess sitting is actually more harmful population-wide than smoking. And it is it's an astonishing hypothesis. But when you actually sort of contemplate it, because it's something all of us do, the ultimate impact is greater.
It's actually mind-boggling is the phrase that I would use. And when I read this book, I was shocked. I mean, I really was shocked. We're talking to James Levine here, the author of this book, Get Up: Why Your Chair is Killing You and What You Can Do About It. And one of the things I found fascinating, I'm looking at page 68 here, James, is if people sit after a meal. So just imagine you have your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner, your snacking. If you sit down after that meal, as most people do, right? They have dinner, they eat, they're watching the TV or in a restaurant, they just sit down. Then your blood sugar levels peak like a mountain for about 2 hours. I'm reading from your book here. If, however, people take a 15-minute walk at 1 mile per hour after a meal, the mountains become safe, gentle, rolling hills. With a 1 mile per hour walk after a meal, blood sugar peaks are halved.
Correct.
So, in other words, when you complete your meal, when you finish a meal, if you then get up and walk just very gently for 15 minutes, you are essentially reducing your chance of retaining body fat, belly fat. You're actually giving your body an opportunity to burn off the calories that you've just put in there. We're not suggesting you go to the gym and jump up and down and do push-ups and everything because you've just put food in you, right? But just a gentle walk. I'm doing one. Let me put my thing down to 1 mile per hour here. This is me at 1 mile per hour. Look how slowly I'm walking. This is actually kind of hurts me to walk. Not hurt, but like I want to go quicker. So if you go at a walk like this at 1 mile per hour, if you're watching this on the video right now, and if you're listening on the audio, I'm going very, very slowly, you can halve your blood sugar levels. Why, James?
Okay, so I mean, the first observation, the first comment is that these experiments have been done very, very intricately with continuous blood glucose monitoring. And this is beautifully done research. And the implications of, first of all, let's sort of take half a step back and think about it. So in Minnesota, where I used to work, is farmland, right? And so the idea was you wake up early in the morning, you have a huge breakfast, you go out and work, you're physically exhausted, you take lunch, you work in the afternoon, and then you take a light meal in the evening before going to bed. And it makes total sense, right? You fuel the body to work. Zoom into modernity. Drive through, muck breakfast, lunch at the desk, right? And all of a sudden you realize how unphysiological, how wrong this ultimately has to be for our bodies. And now the data assert that. So how is it that you can halve your blood glucose by taking a walk, just as you were doing a stroll after your meal? My grandma used to take me for a stroll after her meal. Mind you, she'd also smoke a cigarette, which we don't recommend anymore, but you get the idea. So why does this work? The reason is as follows. As soon as you carry your body weight, the muscle activates a whole series of proteins and cellular components that ultimately handle that glucose far more efficiently. They drive glucose into the system through insulin. Now, what's interesting at a molecular level is those activators start switching on within 90 seconds of getting up off your bottom. In other words, the body is fundamentally designed to process your meals as soon or very shortly after you actually eat them, for exactly the reasons we're probably talking about teleologically. And so, contrarily, if you then eat and sit down, what do you think is going to happen to the fuel? How can it possibly do you any good? Because your body doesn't actually require it. Of course, it's going to go into sort of sludge, right? And that's exactly what happens.
So let's do two scenarios here. Where you're at home, you have the family dinner, or you're living by yourself, whatever your circumstances, but you've just cooked yourself a meal, you're sitting at the dinner table, you have your dinner, you put the last bite of food into your mouth. What should you do from this point? And if you are looking to keep belly fat off, if you're looking for good digestion, if you're wanting to be as healthy as you can, what should you do in the 1 minute after you put the last bite of food in your mouth?
Okay, so let me give you my fantasy, right? Family, friends around the table, family cooked, friend cooked dinner, or you cook for yourself, something cool, something fun. You enjoy it. You enjoy your food. And then what do? You get up for a stroll. If it's in Hollywood, you go down by the beach, hopefully. If it's out here in Arizona, there's a canal at the back of the hotel here, so I go for a walk at the end of my meal. And last night I was actually out with friends, and we just went walking along the canal, chatting, right? Old school. And that's exactly what the fantasy is. Take a friend, take one of your kids, take family, go for a stroll by yourself, take this podcast and get up and go for a stroll after a meal. It's so simple, and it's such a lovely thing to do. And what's important about all of this, just like what's the number one message about food? You've got to eat. No, eating healthy is great, but if you don't enjoy it, it's not sustainable. Going for a stroll after your meal is cool, and it's got to be fun, and then you'll do it forever.
Well, and I can attest to the fact that this works, okay? This is not me just listening to James Levine, the author of the book, and taking his word for it. Before I've actually reached out to James and done this interview, I've had this treadmill desk now for about 6 weeks. And so I've tested it. I read the book. I said, that's it. I'm sold. I'm going to buy a treadmill desk. I'm going to walk after every meal now. I've been doing this for 6 weeks. Now, I was always around 193, 194 pounds. Have been for about 7 or 8 months, okay? I got this treadmill desk, and when I wasn't here at work, when I would eat outside of work, I would get up and I would walk for 15 minutes. I'm now consistently between 187 and 189. I haven't gone back over to 190 since I got this damn thing. And it's not just walking on the treadmill disc whenever I feel like it, which is what I do. I'm very, very specific. When I eat a meal, if I'm at home, I'll jump straight on the treadmill desk for at least 15 minutes, and I'll just walk like this. It's very simple. Last night, I went down to Sunset Boulevard to a place called The Counter, which does these beautiful grass-fed hamburgers. I get in the bowl style with the salad. I don't have the bun or anything. And I brought it home and I ate it here and I sat down and I ate it and I enjoyed it. And then the moment that I finished, I got up and I came onto my treadmill desk and I walked for 15 minutes. And I'm telling you, it feels terrific. And at the end of the 15 minutes, I'm not like, ugh, I just had a huge meal, because I eat a lot, James. I eat a lot of food. And sometimes when I have a big meal, I'll just like want to lay down on the sofa. But when I finish my big meal now and I get up and I walk, at the end of those 15 minutes, I actually feel energized. I feel really terrific. And that is reflected in the fact that I've dropped stubborn belly fat. It hasn't eaten into my muscles, or because I go to the gym and work out, but I can see it in the mirror. Every morning I wake up, I splash water in my face. It's hot at the moment, so I'm sleeping without a shirt, and I can see my abs coming through every morning, and I'm going, damn it, geez, John, you're looking pretty good there, fella.
GQ is cooling. GQ is cooling. Hey, so I've got a question, James. I've got a question for you based on what we now know from the corporate studies. So here's my question. One of our big fears about rolling this out into big corporations was that if people start moving during work time, they're going to go home and flop down on the sofa. They're going to be exhausted. But what we've seen is the exact opposite. Is
yes.
People actually go home energized.
Yes.
All of a sudden, instead of, nothing wrong with watching TV in the evening, it's great. We all love to do it, right? Totally cool, totally there. But also it's cool to wander down to Sunset Boulevard. It's also cool to wander out, to go to the shopping mall rather than necessarily shop online, to take the kids out, take the family out, hang out with a friend, or hang out by yourself. Do you know what I mean? And the data really speak to this idea that if you get active at home, you'll actually get active at work, and vice versa. And all of these health benefits are awesome. And the big question for you, James, is will you be doing this in a year? That's the key question.
Yeah, because people jump on fads and then they do it for a few weeks and then they're off, right? But right. I tell you, as soon as I read your book, I was sold on that, and it was so easy for me to implement it. I'll tell you what happened. The first 2 or 3 nights that I started doing this, I would walk. My usual routine is I will go to the gym at least once or 5 times a week. Let's say once a day on average. And I would sleep very well. I'd have 7 or 8 hours sleep. The first few days that I implemented the walking, the additional 5 miles probably, I could feel my legs being a little bit tired, and I slept even better than what I normally sleep. But then on day 4 and day 5, as my body became accustomed to it, it was just like, get me on that damn treadmill. Let me go for a walk around the block. Let me do this. I don't want to sit down. And I remember I went to Fort Worth, Texas, to the podcast movement, which is a conference they have there. And, they have these seminars and these lecturers come up throughout the day, and they've got all these chairs down. And I went down instinctively, and I went to sit down when I was watching one of the lecturers. And I sat down for about 4 or 5 minutes, and I was like, this is really uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. So I stood up and I went across to the side wall.
Yep.
For the full 2 days, I never sat down again. I just I stood up watching like 6 or 7 different lectures at this seminar over 2 days and never sat down. And at the end of the day, I wasn't tired. I was energetic. I was feeling amazing, and it was good for my brain activity as well.
So it's very interesting. So, I mean, the first comment would be did you acquire as much information standing and strolling at the back of the lecture hall as you did sitting down? And at least for me, I'm one of these people who sit down and fall asleep.
Yes.
I've fallen asleep in the most embarrassing situations, particularly when my colleagues talk. And I fall asleep when I talk too. But you know what I mean? So to me, my gut feeling is you acquired as much information as you would have done if you were sitting down snoozing in the 3rd row.
Well, it brings an interesting point, because also in your book, you say that if you sit for a long time, your brain becomes idle.
Exactly. And that's exactly where I was going with this. That is exactly the point. And now the data there are data in children and in adults. Adults who are up and moving, just like you're doing, are actually about 11 to 15% more productive. Now, the reason for that is there are a couple of reasons for that are absolutely specific. Partly, you don't do the 2 to 4 p.m. snooze. eBay, Facebook, all the things people normally do during their workday, right?
Yes.
But we know this, right? So first of all, that appears to disappear. Second of all, people actually become, if you like, more creative, by which I mean their innovative thought processes, even the parts of their brain associated with innovation, light up. That's really cool. But what's really sort of, I think, as you said, which is sort of quite sort of inspiring for our group, is what we now know is that kids' grades, children, learn substantially better, and there doesn't appear to be an age limit for that. So we've just finished experiments in 4-year-old children, and their sort of letter acquisition is quicker when they're doing active learning compared to inactive learning. And that goes all the way through multiple experiments right into high school and into university. And so you get the sense that not only are our bodies built to move, but our brains are built to be moving too.
It's really incredible. I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say that you become smarter when you move, but you certainly don't become dumber. You know, I am sold on this because and again, I didn't just bring you on the show because you wrote a book and I, was skeptical. Like, I've read it and I've tested this. I've waited 6 weeks to test this deliberately before actually reaching out to you and doing the interview, because I want to make sure that this is legit. And it is. Like I said, I'm down now to about between 187, 189 pounds. I have a lot more energy, even more energy than what I felt like I had just from being physically active anyway. I enjoy it. It's like I want to get up and I want to walk around now. Like, I've done a lot more walks up in Runyon Canyon, which is a very famous hike here in the Hollywood Hills of California. Every Sunday now, where ordinarily I might just hang out and just chill out, now I very consciously go for a little jog to the base of Runyon Canyon, and then I walk up the hill just in a gentle stroll, and it just feels so amazing. And I get that clarity in my brain. It feels amazing. I can smile at other people. It's a lot better than sitting on my ass watching football or watching basketball or watching a Sunday afternoon movie. So how has your physicality changed, James, you in particular, since you understood this? How has it helped your life?
Well, okay, so that's a pretty personal question. Here's what happened to me. So it was probably 7 or 8 years, about 8 years ago, let's say. My wife said to me, and I was literally Monday, I was like Simpsons every evening, Seinfeld after that, football whenever it was possible. That was me. I would play with the kids while still on the sofa. The kids would come to me to play. And and my wife literally said to me, "You're getting fat." And I said, "Excuse me?" And she said, "You're getting fat." And at exactly that time, I'm being serious, exactly that time, the data were coming out of the lab showing that people who are battling obesity are sitting 2.25 hours a day more than people who are lean. Now, I'm a bit of a workaholic. I'm not a lunatic, but I'm a bit of a workaholic. So I knew I was never going to get to the gym. I just knew I'd never do it. So I thought, how can I actually get this activity in and be at work all the time? I hate to tell you this, right? Anyway, and so I literally bought a secondhand treadmill from Sears. We cobbled together one of those patient desks, that go under the bed. And all of a sudden I was doing exactly what you're doing now. And and my life, my doctor said to me, he was actually worried that I had cancer. I'm being serious. He thought I had cancer. I lost 40 pounds.
40 pounds?
I'd gained 30, remember? I lost 40 pounds. I weigh now what I got married at, the exact same weight, 72.5 kilos.
Wow.
Right. But to me, again, all of that was great. And I felt better and all that stuff. And as you say, the abs suddenly rematerialized from wherever they were hiding. But also, I mean, to me, it's all about that energy level. That's, to me, is, so I literally, if the kids wanted to play, like, I feel terrible telling you all this. Anyway, if the kids wanted to play, it was like, let's choose the video together. And I remember watching the Spice Girls video. Do you remember that one?
Tell you what I want, what I really, really want. Is that wanna be? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I want to be. Anyway, that's all.
Here's the story from A to Z. You want?
Yes, I love that.
You better
song.
Listen carefully. We got M in a place who likes it in your face. We got G like MC who likes it on an E.
You've seen it too.
This is me showing my age now. 1990.
I watched that with my daughter. If not, I watched it more often than she did because she'd fall. right?
I love the Spice Girls.
Yeah, I actually did too. But now I'm telling you, so when my kids are here in Arizona, we climb the mountain every morning. We climb Piestequa Peak, kind of like what you were saying. And what did I do So yesterday I was working. It was Sunday. I was working at 4:00 in the afternoon. I didn't make a big deal about it. I didn't think, I need to do some activity. I'd already climbed the mountain once. I've been walking at work all day. I just felt like going for a stroll in the evening. That's exactly what I just went down to the park and strolled, thinking through some of the things I had to do for this week. Right? And it was natural. And that's what I think what you really get out of this. This just becomes you, and you become this. And it has, I mean, my life has just flipped from being somebody who was sort of basically cushioning myself to retirement and ultimately death, to being somebody who and it's interesting, I've taken on issues, I've taken on things I really care about, independently of work. I work with traffic kids. And I don't have to. I do good work, but it's just something I feel really strongly about. And all of a sudden, I'm finding myself, I find the time, I have the energy, and I go and do it. And that's what, I mean, I just love doing what I do. And you can see why I get to meet people like you, people who flip their lives. And it's so cool. And it's not about losing weight. It's not about having, slimline waist. It's about getting on with your life and doing really cool stuff, because that's what life is all about.
Absolutely. Well said. And I just before we wrap this up, I just want to be clear. If you watching or listening to this right now, think that you are healthy because you go to the gym 5 times a week, or because you're active, but 7 days a week for an hour, but then the other 17 hours of your waking day, for example, you are sitting down, then you are not healthy. I mean, you might feel like you might have a level of fitness about you, but you are killing yourself slowly by sitting down in that chair. Is that fair enough, James?
Okay, the first comment, James, I've got to make is, if you are going to the gym every single day, it is really good for you. Do not stop if you
Absolutely.
love it.
So thank you for clarifying that. Yeah.
Really good for you. However, the data, and I actually got pretty upset and now there have been at least half a dozen big studies show that if you go to the gym at the end of the day, you really don't offset the harm of sitting for 13 hours for the rest of the day. That's the
right.
time.
That's exactly it.
Whoever you are, if you're listening to this, please take the podcast and walk. It's so much fun. Get up off your bottom, move every hour. And all of a sudden, one thing will lead to another. We call it the ripple effect. Because once you start moving every hour, you move a little bit more every hour. And then you get into the mindset of doing a meeting like this, walking and talking. And all of a sudden, your life starts to verge onto a new plane and onto really cool stuff.
Absolutely. Well said. Now, you might be wondering how much one of these treadmill desks cost, but here's the thing. Neither James nor I are encouraging you or pushing you to get a treadmill desk. You don't have to do that, okay? All you got to do is just get up and walk around and move. I have chosen to invest in one of these things because I do work from home a lot, and rather than sitting on my ass, I would rather stand up and walk. So it works for me. Now, these things cost about $1,600 American, including tax. Okay, this is a Lifespan one. Neither James nor I have any affiliation with Lifespan. We don't get affiliate commissions or any of that kind of stuff. This is just one that I researched. And I'm just showing it here on the video again now, and you can see me walking. And it's very, very easy for me to work, to type emails, to write down on the pen and paper, because I'm walking at such a pace that the movement does not disrupt me. If I was running, it would disrupt me, but I'm not. I'm just gently strolling. For me, it just feels amazing to do it. It is about $1,600, so it's not cheap, but it's like health in general. Pay for it now or pay for it later, because later on, when you've got hip problems, later on when you've got health problems, later on you've got sore back and all that kind of stuff, you're going to be paying for it anyway. You're going to be paying in medication and doctor's visits and surgeries and insurance premiums. So if you can somehow afford it, in my opinion, it's an absolutely terrific investment. Anything else, James? Do you think to say?
Well, I suppose the big question is how much is a day of life worth?
I'm just letting the silence sink in there, because it's a great statement. It's a great question. How much is a day of life worth? So get up, get off your ass, move around,
and live.
Live, God damn it. Live.
Exactly.
You're just existing in the world, because that's what you're doing. You're just existing. So get up off your ass and move and really live. There you go. How's that for a motivational speech, James?
Love it. Love it.
James Levine, the author of the book Get Up, Why Your Chair is Killing You and What You Can Do About It. Please do buy this book on Amazon. Just go on Amazon right now, if you've got it on your phone or you're watching or listening, and just buy this book and read it. It is exceptional. It's an easy read. It's not too long. It's not too short. It's just about right. As you can see, the notes in the back of the book that I've taken there, the main points that I took out of the book, which are you can halve your blood sugar levels by walking for 15 minutes after a meal. If you sit for a long time, your brain becomes idle. Move around. So that's how I summed up the book in about two sentences there. But fascinating research. Make sure you read it. James Levine, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this and for inspiring.
Total pleasure. It's a joy.
Yeah, well, look at me. I'm walking. Now, before we go, let's just find out. I've been walking now for 42 minutes, 34 seconds. Let's have a look here. So I've taken 2,926 steps. I've burned 121 calories, and I've walked 0.9 miles at an average speed of 1.3. So I've almost walked a mile in the duration that it took us to do this interview.
And you could have done the same interview sitting down.
I know, but now I've walked a mile.
Awesome. Bring it on.
James Levine, thank you so much, sir. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Cheers to you, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Here are 5 ways I can support you on your health journey. Number 1, the Better AF group support. You can go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/betteraf. That is group virtual coaching to help you to stop drinking. The YouTube channel at alcoholfreelifestyle.com/YouTube. The book, Alcohol Freedom Formula, can be found at alcoholfreelifestyle.com/guide. My liver cleanse from my supplements company, Swan Vitality, at swanvitality.com. And protect your eyes from screens by wearing a pair of Swannies blue light blocking glasses from my sleep company, Swanic Sleep. You can find that at swannies.com. Catch you on the next one.